Hi, Chris at CK77. This is Ride Sharing Stories #1. If you guys like what you hear, feel free to send me an email if you have any stories of your own at ck77ridesharingstories@gmail.com. This is what I use for my ride sharing. It's a 2015 Kia Optima. It's a great car, great on fuel, great suspension, and I would totally recommend this car to anybody. Alright, so ride sharing story #1. This is a trip from, it was the Mystic Aquarium to Old Saybrook in New London. So I picked these people up. It was a wedding ceremony that went on. Reception was being held at the Mystic Aquarium. I picked these gentlemen and a lady up. I'm driving down 95 South. I hear this guy kind of, gurgle a little bit, thinking, oh man, this gentleman's gonna be sick. I tell the lady, if he's gonna be sick, let me know. I'll pull over the side of the road and he can do what he's got to do. I'll open up the door for him and everything. She's like, oh no, he'll be fine, I'm like, all right, not a problem, continue the trip. A little bit down the road, I hear this gentleman start heaving and hiving, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And I said, lady, is he all right? She's like, oh, it's just water, don't worry about it. And I'm like, it doesn't smell like water. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. And I was like, all right. So I get to their destination down in Old Saybrook. And I said, lady, if he's thrown up in my car, I'm gonna have to charge you for a cleaning fee. Either that or you can help me clean it up. She says, well, let me get him into the house and I'll come back out and look. All right. So she takes him in the house. I turn on all the lights in my car. I open up the doors. He was sitting behind me in the driver's seat, and I'm like, oh boy, chunks everywhere. Lobster, shrimp. Like, I swear to God, I saw whole shrimps. I think they was just swimming around in his belly. So I'm like, all right, whoo, smell, everything just raking. Lady comes back out. I said, yeah. I was like, ma'am, either you gotta, help me clean it up or I gotta charge you. She takes one look. She says, charge me, and walks away. I was like, well, alrighty then. All right. Ride sharing story #2. This was from Mohegan Sun down to New Haven, Connecticut. I picked a gentleman up. It was probably 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning from Mohegan Sun, smelling like alcohol. I've done this trip a million times, that's why we're here. We're here to, make sure people who've been drinking and driving, or don't drink and drive, who have been drinking, to give them a ride, make sure they make it home safe. So I picked this gentleman up at Mohegan Sun, smelling of booze, and I'm like, all right. It's like, I'm going to New Haven. It's like, all right. So I'm heading down 395 South, get on 95 South. All of a sudden, I get a trip cancellation. Weird. I pull over the side of the road and I said, sir, he's passed out drunk. Now, generally, I don't like to touch people because that's inappropriate, right? So I said, sir, and I'm screaming his name. Nothing. I start shaking this gentleman's leg. Nothing. He's not waking up. He's incoherent. So I resort to kind of slapping him on the face. A little love tap turned out to me like full-fledged slapping this gentleman in the face, and I feel really bad, right? Finally he wakes up and I say, sir, I need you to request another trip. And he says, well, I can't. My phone died. And I'm like, all right. Well, how do you want to do this? And he's like, well, would you leave me on the side of the road? I was like, well, yeah, I'm not getting paid, so sorry, man. So he says, can you accept cash? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I don't got any cash on me. And I'm like, oh boy, I ain't getting paid for this, right? So I say, $40, I'll get you there. We're almost there anyways. And he's like, all right, I'll get you on the back end when we get there. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we're driving. I get him there. And, once again, he's incoherent. Resort to slapping him in the face again. And finally he comes to, and I said, sir, we're here. And he says, well, this is my house, but I need to go to my wife's house. And I'm like, oh, man. Now, the whole time I'm on this trip, I'm contacting the company I drive for. And I'm like, look, I did this trip from Mohegan Sun to New Haven. And they were like, oh, well, we calculated it and you were paid for what you drove. And I'm like, excuse me? I was like, yo, it's about 60 miles and 60 minutes. I'd like to be paid for my time and my mileage. And finally, they got back to me. After like 2 or 3 times of me going back and forth, them going back and forth, they said, all right, we recalculated the fare. So I got paid through the company. Great. So we get there, you know, and the gentleman said, this ain't my house, got to go to my wife's house. I'm like, all right, well, give me the address. Oh, no, it's just right down the road. I'll give you directions. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. He proceeds to give me drunk directions. Great. I mean, drunk drivers are bad enough. They're all, you know, they're still doing it. I don't know why. There's so many, you know, these apps out there, you know, they ain't got to do it. Well, drunk directions from a drunk person is just as bad. So I'm driving. I pass through a stoplight and he's like, oh, turn at the next right. I turn at the next right. I'm driving. He passes out again. I'm like, yo, man. Oh, I'm sorry. Take a left. I take that left and I'm driving. He passes out again. I'm like, oh man. Finally, I came to the conclusion. I was like, sir, give me your wife's address so I could take you to the house. He gives me his wife's address. I punch it in the GPS. I finally get him there. I get there. Dude's passed out again. I'm like, oh man. I get him up. He's like, all right, I owe you some money. And I'm like, yeah, you owe me some money. So he goes upstairs and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I ain't getting paid. I'm just wasting my time. Dude's gonna go upstairs, he's gonna pass out, and that's it. I'm trucking him back home. So luckily the gentleman comes down, hands me a $50 bill and he says, look man, I'm sorry, but keep it. And I'm like, whoo! Thank you. Alright. Ride sharing story number 3. Alright. I picked some people up from a local hotel. They're heading up to Mohegan Sun, you know. Plan on drinking, right? Very responsible people. Like, great. So I'm driving up to Mohegan Sun. About, you know, I get on Mohegan Boulevard, and that's about when I like to ask them where they'd like to be dropped off. There's a couple valets to be dropped off. I said, where would you guys like to be dropped off? And I hear from a backseat, vodka. Vodka? There's a valet vodka. Well, I want to go to that valet. So I'm like, man, there ain't no valet named Vodka. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been drinking already. I thought you asked me what I was drinking. And I was like, ma'am, I don't care what you're drinking. I just care where you're going. Alright guys, that's it. As a reminder, CK77. Please subscribe, like the video if you like it. If you got any ride sharing stories of yourself, or from yourself, or drivers, or you were a passenger, it's CK77 ride sharing stories at gmail.com. Feel free to drop me a line. Deuces.